was one John Helsley this weekend when we did a podcast.
That is true.
And other than that, I've seen people walking, but it's been across the street. It's funny, you know, when we walk the dog, if we see another, now part of it is we want to get away from their dog because our dog has been known to bark ferociously at other dogs. But lately, I've noticed our dog is the best behaved dog in the neighborhood, and other dogs are barking at our dog, and our dog is just being, you know, civil. But we do try and cross the street and keep social distancing. So other than my wife, you're the only person I've talked to face-to-face in a long time, I think. And
well, I'm sorry that's the case, that I'm that person. But
no, that's good. And the thing is, you know, several times my wife and I have talked about this and said, you know, if we got to be cooped up, we're glad we're cooped up with each other. And now when this normalizes, we may not see each other for several weeks, and I don't think that will be the case. But no, I tell you what, I'm happy with I'll put it this way, I'm happy with my teammate, and I'm glad my teammate is happy with me.
And that's great. That's the way to be, you know. But hey, taking a tip there from the Orzerons, right? When this thing is over, this might be the year of the great separate vacations. You know, people have made me so fed up with each other. It's like, hey, why don't you go on a girls' trip over there, and we'll take a golf trip over here and meet back here in a week or so. It might be one of those years.
That, and we may have more of what Ed and his wife Kelly are doing. And I said this to my wife last night. I looked at her and I said, you think we're really going to have a baby boom after this? My wife looked at me like I was stupid. She goes, oh, yeah. Yeah. There'll be here about 9 months from now, there's going to be a lot of babies. You know, hopefully by then, most of the doctors and nurses can take a rest, and they will have done their duty, and we'll get past this. But the OBGYNs are going to be very busy. So, okay. Anyway, enough of that. I've tried to keep this show really positive, but this morning, the first half hour or so was more doom and gloom. You get the Athletic, don't you?
I do, absolutely.
I read that this morning and a few other things, and this was, you know, and then Wimbledon was canceled yesterday. Today they're saying the Open Championship is going to be either canceled or postponed, and I don't know. I told the audience this has been maybe my most sobering morning, and while I've tried to stay real positive, I don't know if you read that story on The Athletic about the poll that was done, the report that was done, talking to 100 athletic directors, and Chris Del Conte was quoted in it. But that's kind of a doom and gloom report.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I had seen some of the quotes, though, that were leaked, and some of the anonymous ones as well. And there's a lot of doom and gloom out there in the media reports, and I don't mean unfairly. I mean we don't know where this thing's going. We don't know how to translate the numbers, and you know, the more you read, the more you start to doubt that some of these seasons are going to take place, and they don't cancel things like Wimbledon without some really high level knowledge coming at them, right? These are the only reason you would cancel a Wimbledon or a Masters or whatever it may be. I know they postponed the Masters, but is because people in high ranking places are saying, look, this is not going to be good until X date. And that's the fear, I think, is that we're going to get to a point, and it's still early summer, and nothing's really been resolved, and we're going to start thinking, okay, how realistic is it to play a season? And I'll be honest with you, I'm okay with empty stadiums for TV. I'm okay with that as long as we get something live to watch and to enjoy. I'm okay with watching a ball game that's being played in empty stadiums. Maybe they can pipe in some music or something, or they could use all their fantastic graphic abilities to put fans, fake fans in the seats.
Virtual.
I don't know. Yeah, virtual fans. There you go.
Yeah, that's the greatest fear, is that you end up with a college football game that is half real. And what's the company down in Florida that does all the electronic games? EA Sports. It's half real, half EA Sports. That is, oh wow, that's a sobering thought. The other thing I was going to bring up, you're an academician. I introduced you this morning earlier that we were going to have John Helsley, formerly with the Oklahoman, and still writes for Pokes Report, we're happy to say, and teaches classes and is the chief advisor of the Ocali on the Oklahoma State campus. The Ohio State University has already, and this is something that hit me in the gut, the Ohio State University has come out and said only online remote learning for the summer. It's one thing to cancel it all the way through the spring semester. It's another thing for a university of that size and that stature to already right now say this is what we're going to do for the summer.
Well, and it makes sense, though. I think we're going to see more and more universities go to that. I'm not making any predictions for OSU, but, I mean, if you think about it, classes would start in May. And, I mean, do we realistically think that social distancing is going to be gone by May? I don't. I think we're still going to be social distancing into June. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a lot of other schools follow suit with that.
Well, you have covered college sports for a long time, long enough that you have, like most of us that have done that and are in this business, have a pretty good background and understand how the money's made and kind of how the sausage is made in college athletics. And if we get to the point that there's a chance of no football season, or a very radically changed football season, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a scary proposition for most schools that rely on football to fund the athletic departments, and that's every school at a Division I level, and maybe I don't know if that carries on down to other levels as well. But I mean, it's a scary thought, because once you get to spring, where's the money to roll out all the spring sports or even the winter sports? It's a very scary proposition for athletic departments, no doubt. That's why I think even if you play in empty stadiums while you lose ticket revenue, at least you're getting your TV revenue. At least you have some revenue coming in. But, I mean, I didn't want to even consider that possibility until really this week. I mean, I kept thinking, oh, no, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But, boy, as you see more and more people sort of adopt that thought process, I'm starting to come to the realization that, hey, it's not impossible, and I'm not going to say it's likely yet, but it's definitely not impossible. So I don't know how you bring 100 football players back to workouts and somehow find a way to have a football season in the fall, but I'm sure hoping that they can find a way to do that.
Well, here's what I mean, and I'm not trying to, although when I think about it, the first thing I think about, do you remember that futuristic movie with James Caan, Rollerball?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, Rollerball. And I think what you would have to do is, and it's kind of funny because we did this mythically on Pokes Report with the mythical March Madness we did. Mm-hmm. We explained on the day the bracket came out on Selection Sunday that we were holding the regionals all at 4 sites on campus, and that all the teams selected, 16 teams in each regional, were all going to those campuses and would be sequestered there because they weren't going to move around. If you made it from the first weekend to the second weekend, obviously the losers go home, but the winners stay and they practice there with their team, only with their team, sequestered the entire time. That's the only way you could do it. You couldn't let them scatter and then come back the next week. And so we kind of, in a futuristic way, we explain that. And I think, John, if colleges are going to plan on a football season, and they're going to plan on it while there is still, like you mentioned, social distancing and some quarantining, you will have to quarantine entire football programs.
No
Players, coaches, support staff, the trainers, the doctors, the managers, anybody that is going to be in that program, they have to, and if your campus is doing all online classes, you have an entire campus pretty much to put these athletes on. And, they'd have to go through physicals, which they do anyway to start the season, and test and make sure that they're all COVID-19, free. And then you just have to keep them sequestered. They have to commit, kind of like the nurses and doctors that we're seeing that may come home but live in a isolated part of their house. I know Dave Hunziker, and I don't mean to tell Dave's business, but his wife, Stillwater Medical Center, she comes home and, Dave moved upstairs so she could have the master bedroom, and that's where she lives. And, because she's dealing with this situation, and Dave's got to isolate from her, you'd have to isolate whole football teams. And and
that's the only way I can see it.
That's the only way you could do it. And now somebody's got a plan for that. And then if you do that, and you obviously, you would be eliminated from the Big 12 championship competition if somebody shows up on your team somehow with COVID-19, because now your whole team is done. You'd be eliminated. Your schedule is void, and you forfeit whatever games you have left. That's how you would have to do this. And that is crazy to think about. And I don't know why I thought of rollerball with that, but maybe just because it was futuristic, and that's kind of what you're looking at a little bit. But that would be one way you could do it. And if you're going to, you probably should start at some point early in the summer putting these programs together, testing everybody, and getting them to the point where, okay, everybody's living in Bennett Hall. No, that's not going to be the case at Oklahoma State, but you pick out one of those apartment areas. Everybody's living there. When they walk down the street to go to the West End zone, people stay away. They basically are a quarantined group to stay COVID-19 free so they can compete in televised college football games. Is that just insanity?
It sure seems like insanity, right? And we think back to rollerball. I remember when I was a kid and that came out, and it was like, wow, look at this crazy thought, futuristic, whatever, it could never happen. And now we're sitting here talking about, crazy things that 6 months ago we never thought could happen. And but you're right, that's what it would require. And I guarantee you, there's not a player out there who would say no to that. Everybody's probably so stir crazy wherever they are, they would welcome the idea to come back and play a season or however long they'd have to play up the schedule just that way. Boy, I don't know what that would mean for coaches and their families. That could be really difficult. Maybe they move into not Bennett Hall, but whatever, along with the coach, quarantine as well. But it's a crazy scenario that has so many different layers to it that it's just hard to fathom. It really is. It's a strange time we're in.
I wanted to ask you this before we say goodbye. Like I said, you're an academician. You're the advisor for the O'Colly. What during this time? What's been the mood, and what's been the most frequently asked questions or discussion topics? Between you and your students.
Well, initially it was, have you ever seen anything like this? And of course the answer is no, not in my lifetime. never seen or experienced anything like this. And what I've enjoyed seeing is so many of our students, even though some of them aren't even in Stillwater, have really jumped in to the coverage and to the idea of getting as good a coronavirus-related stories as they can. We've had some others that have tried to provide some lighter things, and we had a Netflix binge March Madness bracket, and that's gotten a lot of traction on the internet and on Twitter and different places like that.
Does that include Tiger King?
Oh yeah. In fact,
Tiger
one of our
King had to win.
We have continued to put out a virtual paper, right, a digital paper on the website, and our cover on Monday was this Photoshop Tiger King at OSU, standing way above the Union. And there was a great story that one of our students, Ryan Novozinski, did. He's actually a sports guy, but he found this time when Joe Exotic came to OSU with the rest of the gubernatorial candidates, and it was a wild story. Everybody else was in a suit and tie, and he was just, he was a bum, and he was throwing out all these crazy thoughts. And anyway, it was great fun, and I thought it was a lot of fun that he was able to find this out and really dive into it. And so yeah, we've had some fun with it. None of this is I say we've had some fun with the paper since then. Nobody's having any fun with the virus, obviously. But I've been really proud of our students for jumping out there and trying to produce some good content. Same with my class. I teach a reporting class, and we're doing that through distance as well. And we had to change the syllabus a little bit, change our final 2 stories of the year, and for our most recent story, I said, hey, just find me somebody who's been impacted by the coronavirus, which means all of us. But they did some great stories there too. And just love to see young people jump in and do these things. And but it's been weird, trying to conduct a paper without actually, having kids come into the office and sit down and talk to you and hash over ideas. So we've been doing it through Zoom and Skype and all these different things.
Well, it is interesting times, and you know what? I do think this, and I mean, some people will wrap it up with this. Some people may say, Robert, you're off the deep end, but like you said, our generation has not really been through anything like this. We've had the Gulf War, we've had 9/11 locally, we've had the Murrah Federal building bombing, and that changed a lot of things for a lot of us, especially in the media. Both times, the Gulf War and that, I went to working news. In fact, I worked for the BBC after the Murrah bombing, which was interesting, doing live shots back to England. But this kind of is this has really kind of been our situation, and I think for the generations younger than us, this is going to change the way everybody does things for the future. I think it's going to change personal discipline. I think lessons are going to be learned from this.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the things that you mentioned that were really hard times, during our lifetime, whether it was, like you said, the Gulf War, 9/11, the Murrah building, you always had a sense of, okay, we're going to get through this, and we know that there's an end date, and the end date is soon for the most part. That's what's different about this one. We don't know that end date. We know there's going to be one, surely, although they're talking about a second wave of this in the fall. But yeah, the end date seems so far out there right now and so uncertain that it's put a different feeling on this, And even when those things happened, you weren't like in lockdown mode where you couldn't do anything but go to the grocery store and the pharmacy, right? I mean,
yeah.
You could still somewhat live your life, but yeah, this is different. And you're right. For this generation, this is going to be the thing they tell their kids about, and they're going to be asked about, what was that like when you went through the pandemic of 2020?
Yeah. So, hey, John, I appreciate it.
All right, Robert. Take care.
All right, John Helsley from Post Report, but he is shaping the minds.